Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Seth Ferranti.
No, it was Supreme Team, Kenneth
Supreme.
Supreme McGriff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, he's right over there, and I'm like, so that's really where I got the whole idea, to start writing books, because I was like, I started writing, because I was like, well, I couldn't find any books. There was maybe a couple of magazine articles and some newspaper articles about this dude, but there was like no books. So that's what, I went to a couple of the dudes I was with, like Supreme and other dudes, and that's how I started writing. So I started writing first for Don Demon Feds magazine, and eventually I started doing books with Gorilla Convict. But as I was building this, as it was going on, I was still in the mediums, and like some of the white gang leaders, like the Aryan dudes, they would come to me, and they try to say like, I'm an inward lover, or I'm this, or I'm that, and they'd be like, why are you writing about these dudes? You're like glorifying them, blah, blah, blah. After I had some articles and books out, because I would get the magazines that I wrote articles in, sent right in, and they were like real popular in prison.
Yeah, but the prisoners started to get pissed at you too, right?
Yeah, no, they did too. So I'll go into that after. So these white gang leaders like come to me and they're like, why are you writing about these dudes? Blah, blah, blah. And I told them straight up, I said, well, check this out, man. I go, when you guys bring in like heroin or weed or whatever, I go, you guys sell it to whoever. You sell it to black people, right? I go, you sell it to Spanish people, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and if they got heroin or weed or whatever, or hooch, I go, you buy it from them, or you sit at the gambling tables with them, you gamble with them, right? And they're like, well, that's money, man. And I'm like, well, I make money. This is my hustle, bro. I said, I make money writing about this stuff. So I said, money's green, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing. And then after that, they kind of backed off. They were like, well, they couldn't say nothing, because the way I broke it down to them, like, you're doing the same thing. So, and a lot of the shot callers or the gang leaders, anyhow, for the whites, they're not about all that racial stuff. They're about the money. It's just a way to control. All the racial stuff is to control all the crash test dummies under you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what they do. They use all that racial shit, because your flag, your skin is your flag. Your skin color is your flag in prison. So, they use that to get everybody to flock to the banner, to flock to the flag, like, okay, this is for the whites. But nah, the dudes at the top, they're about the money. So when you break it down to them like that, I mean, they couldn't say shit. And plus, a lot of those dudes, they used to use me because if something happened, with the other races, let's say like over in this block, like a white boy got his tennis shoes stolen, right? And then the white boys are all mad, and the shot callers are like, fuck, like, we got to go to war. They can't be taken advantage of. But they could come to somebody like me, and they could say, like, go talk to those people, so-and-so, go talk, like, this dude's a Crip or he's a Blood. Go talk to the head Blood dude, man, and see if you can get those shoes back. And then maybe I run full court basketball with the dude, New York dude or some Blood dude or Crip, it doesn't matter. And I'll go tell him, I'll be like, yo, man, your little homie stole this dude's shoe, man. I go, that shit ain't cool. That he's with us. That's a good white boy, man. He ain't no open season. We need those shoes back. And sometimes we get the shoes back, and if they couldn't get the shoes back, if something happened to them or whatever, dude transferred, dude went to the hole or whatever, then they would give us like the money value and stamps or whatever. So
I understand that, but have you ever had a person where they just would not, like, they didn't want to do like smooth time, and they were just abrasive assholes?
Oh yeah. No, you would see dudes like that, and like, all right, because in there it's like, I mean, prison is chaos. Basically, it's chaos, right? But then you have those dudes, like, they're just trying, like, they're trying to court the chaos, right? And I always seen dudes like that, and like I say, I would always kind of, stand back, not try to get involved with them, because eventually they're going to court some chaos that they don't want, or people are going to get sick of it. Somebody's going to drop a note on them. They're going to go up against someone that is tough too, because there's a lot of tough dudes in there. So yeah, dudes like that, I would just play the diplomatic. I wasn't the one. I didn't have to check nobody. I wasn't running nothing.
Yeah.
I could put out fires, and I had good diplomatic skills. So, those dudes in those positions, they would use me, to help their agenda, whatever their agenda was. But you know, I wasn't the one. Like I wasn't making the rules. I never claimed to be a shot caller or nothing. I never claimed. You know, I was never in a gang. You know, I used to sit at the Italian table because my last name's Italian. So I sat with the mobsters. I didn't sit with the white boys.
Yeah.
You know, but I could
and
move.
There's different sections. So the white dudes that aren't affiliated with the mob guys sit by themselves, right? And then the Italians sit by themselves, and then you have different groups.
Yeah, different tables. You know, then the Spanish got their tables. You might have the Mexicans, the Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans. They all got separate tables. Then the homosexuals, they might have their table. You know, then the blacks are all broken up. Like, you know, here's Detroit, here's New York, here's DC, you know, or different gangs or whatever, you know. So a lot of times I'll be with Italians, but, you know, at the same time, you know, I'm Caucasian, so I can move with the whites too. So, you know, I could kind of move back and forth. But, you know, if it came down to it, you know, I'd go with the Italian dudes just because, you know, a lot, you know, whatever, a lot of mobsters, you hear a lot of different stories, you know, hang out with them, whatever, you know.
And they're more laid back, right?
Yeah, they're older dudes. They got money. You know what? Why would want to be with a lot of, and, you know, they got more sophisticated crimes, you know, because, you know, they're from crime families where a lot of the white dudes, I mean, I was with in like prisons like Manchester and West Virginia. I was like white dudes that were like in there for like burning like what you know, when they put like that racial shit, like they burn something on a black person's lawn or something. Like there were dudes because that's like a federal hate crime. There were dudes like that, and like that's not my mentality. I don't fuck with those dudes. I might know them and I might have to deal with them because in prison you're in a fishbowl, so you got to deal with everybody. Yeah. You know, you have no choice. You can't just be like, oh, I don't fuck with you, you know, because it could lead to a problem. But, you know, that's not my mentality. That's never been my mentality. And, you know, it's just, you know, it is what it is.
So during your time in prison, when did you come across Ryan Leone?
So Ryan, I was never locked up with Ryan. So he was in the feds at the same time as me. So Ryan, you know, because by the time Ryan had came in, like in the 2000s, you know, I started writing books, and, you know, by like 2010, like my books in prison are fucking huge. My Street Legends series, you know, are fucking huge. Like I don't even know how to explain it, but, you know, like one person buys a book in there and 100 people read it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't have the sales like that, but, you know, I tell people like I could go in any prison in state on the East Coast and people are going to know who I am. You know, maybe not the Midwest or California as much because most of the dudes I wrote about are East Coast. But, you know, even Cali, like I can go any federal prison, they're going to know who I am as soon as I touch the compound, you know, just because of my books, you know, but, you know, in some state joints too. But,
yeah, your books, I've seen your books in Connecticut prison.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes. Yeah. So my books are just like fucking huge. You know,
it's a lot bigger than you think, man.
Yeah, so just a lot of people know me, and like, you know, I got to the point even where like people would always come up to me and they want me to write about their story, right? And plus I wrote for Don Diva and Feds and stuff like that. But I would tell people like just to get them off me, I'd be like, well, how many articles do they write about your case? And they'd be like, oh, like I got 5, and they try to show me the articles, and I'd be like, look, dude, I only write about people that had like 50 or more articles. You know, because so many dudes would come at me and they want me to write about them, and you know, you don't want to be a dick. You're in prison. You don't want to offend nobody. Then they might stab you. So, you know, I'd set stuff up. I'd be like, you know, if your case don't have 50 articles, bro, I ain't gonna write about it. So,
was there anybody you wanted to write about and they didn't want you to write about them?
Yeah, a bunch of people that I tried, you know, and like if I try to interview them, you know, some dudes they want to interview, but they didn't care if I wrote about them because they kind of like the infamy. But they wouldn't say nothing because they were fighting cases or whatever. You know, like a lot of these dudes, like they're not guilty, so they're fighting their case forever. You know,
yeah, it's a big conspiracy case. A lot of them get brought in on conspiracy.
Yeah, but I had some dudes. Yeah, they didn't want me to write about them, so you know, I had to respect that. And you know, when I was in prison, I didn't, because I used to hang out with the mobsters, so I didn't really write about the mobsters a lot because I hung out with them.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So I wrote about more the black drug lords because, you know, I knew them and there weren't any books about them. And a lot of them, they wanted me to write about them. They wanted to be interviewed. They wanted to be in Don Diva. They wanted to be in the feds. They wanted that infamy, you know? So I wrote about some, you know, white prison gangs, and I would interview dudes here and there, you know, but, you know, that it's like the thing, like how they say, you know, like don't shit where you eat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm hustling. So, you know, like I say, if this is my skin color, I'm white, and this is my flag, you know, now since I've been out, I write more. I wrote more about mafia stuff, you know, just in there, you know, because in there, man, like you hear about, you know, journalists like misquoting people all the time, or, you know, portraying them the wrong way. So imagine if I would have did that in there, you know, what would have happened to me. So, you know, I had to write within the death before dishonor code, even though I was like an investigative journalist. You know, like I couldn't write.
You have to tread lightly because one false thing to get you stabbed.
Yeah, then I'm a snitch, or I'm putting murder cases on people or whatever. So, you know, I had to be careful. I had to stick a lot to the court records. I had to stick a lot to the newspaper articles. And then, you know, I would just use the people. I would use the interviews as kind of like the, you know, for the quotes, for the color for the piece. You know, and a lot of stuff, you know, like they wouldn't even talk about because they were still fighting. So, you know, you got to say allegedly a lot, even when they're convicted, because, you know, these dudes are fighting their case. So they don't want you, you know, I was not a mainstream journalist or writer. You know, I didn't have that license that I could just say, like, you know, you say some of these dudes, they are like connecting this and connect. Like when I got out and I met all these different writers, like especially true crime writers or mafia writers, and they're like connecting all this stuff. And they're like, I'm like, damn, let the police do their job, bro. I'm like, I know you're
solving the crimes.
Yeah, I know you're an investigative writer, you know, investigative journalist, but you're doing the police's job. You know, like I was with these dudes. They would not take that kindly. You know, and at the end of the day, all these writers that do true crime or write about the mob or whatever, I mean, some dudes do it to expose stuff, but, you know, some dudes do it, you know, because they want to be friends with these guys, or, you know, they think that, and I tell them too, I say, look, just because you interview, it doesn't mean that they're your friend, bro.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these dudes are like psychopaths. Like they'll fucking shoot you or stab you just the same as look at you. You know, and the same with a lot of people.
Put the knife in your back, like
the same with a lot of people in prison. You know,
just like you said, they're out for themselves. They're not out for other people. They're not trying to help people. It's not like that.
No, they got their own agendas.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. So, how did this affect your prison life once you started writing in the prison? Caught wind of it. What was that like?
Yeah, well, they started locking me up, man. I got locked up a lot of times. They started writing me shots, like saying I was running a business. And they didn't like it because basically when I started first writing, especially about the Black African American drug lords, I was basically giving it like the Billy the Kid treatment. You know, like I was glorifying it. I was romanticizing it because I was writing for my peers and they were there. I was writing for the people in prison. I wasn't writing for people on the street.
Did they bring you to an office and like tell you about this?
Plenty of times, dude. I got locked up and I sat in the hole for like 60 to 90 days. So in the feds, they can put you under investigation for up to 90 days and they don't have to charge you. So they would put me in the hole. Not for my writing. They put me in the hole that says like, "Oh, I'm in the hole because I was in a fight," or "I was in the hole because I was smuggling drugs in," or "I was in the hole because you know, I was getting too close to a staff member." So they would just make these things up, and then they would just let me sit there, bro, like 60.
And then they would drop it right before the 90 days is up.
Or they would come and they would pull me out, and they'd be like, "Look, you know what this is about." And I'd be like, "No, what is this about?" They'd be like, "You know what this is about, man." You know, they'd be like, "Shit runs downhill. You know, you're writing this stuff. You're making us look bad." You know,
did they ever come and take your stuff, like your writings? And
yeah, dude, all the time. But, you know, a lot of times I learned real quick. You know, I would type my shit up and send it right out. And my girl would have it on, you know, she would put it like on a Word doc. You know, that's how I used to do my edits. Even in the hole, dude, I'd be in the hole for writing. And my girl would be sending me packets, and I would just have like one of those little flimsy pencils, you know, that are about like this big that you can barely write with. Yeah. And I would do edits. So I would edit it with the pencil. You know, sometimes, you know, I might be able to get like a pen, you know, from the orderly or something, but, you know, like buy it for like 3 books of stamps. But you don't get a real pen. You just get like the ink part of the pen, like the little plastic thing that goes in there. Yeah. So sometimes if I was lucky, I could get one of those. if the orderly, you know, slick enough can steal one. And I'd be editing my stuff and sitting by, dude, I wrote so much stuff and edited so much stuff in the hole. Like all the whole, I probably did, one time I did 6 months at one time, but I'd say, yeah, altogether, I probably did like almost 3 years in the hole, you know, if you add up all the little 60, 90 days, you know, being 6 months.
A lot of lonely days, man. A lot of things, nothing to do. So,
well, I was in Loretto. I used to read a lot, so I would get a lot of books read. And plus, I was working at college courses. So I had one time I was in Loretto. I was actually working on my, Loretto's a low. I was actually working on my master's degree. And they locked me up. They said I was trying to start a riot, like some bullshit.